Hello students, today I am going to teach about exchange of gases. So gases exchanges process takes place in our lungs. Mainly gases exchange processes takes place in our lungs. During breathing what will happen? Inhalation and exhalation takes place. During inhalation air enters into the air reaches to the up to alveoli. Air reaches to alveoli. So in alveoli, what will happen in the alveoli? Oxygen and carbon dioxide diffusion takes place. Oxygen diffuse into the blood. At the same time, carbon dioxide diffuse into the air. So this diffusion is called. So this exchange is called in the exchange in the alveoli. The exchange of gases in alveoli. Exchange of gases in alveoli is called pulmonary exchange. That is called pulmonary exchange, is also called external respiration. External respiration. That one is called. This is the first exchange. Next, one more exchange is also takes place in the tissue region. So through the blood, the oxygen reaches up to the tissues. In the tissue also one more diffusion process, exchange processes takes place. The oxygen diffuse into the blood, the oxygen is diffused into the tissue. Next, carbon dioxide diffuse into the blood. So that exchange is called systemic exchange. So second one is the exchange takes place in tissue region. So thus that one is called systemic exchange, or it is also called internal respiration. So two exchanges takes place in our body. One is in alveoli, one is in tissue region. In alveoli that is called pulmonary exchange, in tissue that is called systemic exchange. Next we will discuss about factors. Some factors they influence the exchange of gases. So we will discuss about these factors. First of all, partial pressure. Second one, solubility. Third one, thickness of membrane. Membranes, surface area, distance of membranes, So here first of all we will discuss about partial pressure. So these are the factors. We will discuss about first one, partial pressure. So partial pressure means the pressure of a gas in a mixture of gas. So here in the atmosphere, normally in the atmosphere, partial pressure of oxygen is maintained always 150 mmHg. mmHg are units of the partial pressure of gases. So partial pressure of oxygen is 150 mmHg. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide is partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 0.3 mmHg. So these values are in atmosphere of air. So during inhalation process, during inhalation air reaches up to the alveoli. Whenever it reaches to the alveoli, the partial pressure of oxygen little bit decreased. So that reaches to 104 mmHg. Next, partial pressure of carbon dioxide is maintained 40 mmHg. So here what will happen? Here pulmonary artery, this one is pulmonary artery, it brings the blood. This is the heart. Okay, so this is the heart. From the heart, the pulmonary artery brings the blood, or it supply the blood to the lungs. So pulmonary artery brings the which blood? Deoxygenated blood. So here deoxygenated blood is present. So this deoxygenated blood, it transport to the lungs. So in the lungs, in this pulmonary artery, so in the blood, the partial pressure of oxygen is 40 mmHg, partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45 mmHg. So as a result, here partial pressure is in the blood how much? 40. In alveoli how much? 104. So always gases can move high pressure to low pressure. So here high pressure is 104. So that's why oxygen can move into the blood, diffuse into the blood. Next, at the same time, carbon dioxide is high here, 45 mmHg, here only 40 mmHg. So that's why carbon dioxide diffuse into the alveoli. So this diffusion takes place in alveoli. So this is external respiration or pulmonary exchange. So next, after exchange from the lungs through the pulmonary vein brings the blood to the heart. Pulmonary vein, it collects the blood from lungs to the heart. So in the pulmonary vein, so how is the blood? In the blood, the partial pressure of oxygen is increased because of diffusion is occur. So partial pressure of oxygen is maintained 90, partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 40 mmHg. So here 45 mmHg is there. So it will little bit decreased. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide is decreased. So this blood is called oxygenated blood. Oxygenated blood. So this oxygenated blood reaches to the heart. So from the heart through the systemic artery, it's supplied to the different parts of the body. So whenever this blood reaches up to tissue. So in the tissue region, carbon dioxide partial pressure is high because of cellular respiration takes place. More amount of carbon dioxide released into the tissue region. So that's why here the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high. Next, partial pressure of oxygen is low, 40 mmHg. This is 40 mmHg. So here in the blood, partial pressure of oxygen how much? 90. So as it is here 40. So oxygen is diffused into the tissue. Next, carbon dioxide diffuse into the blood. So now that blood is called deoxygenated blood. So this deoxygenated blood, it reaches to the through the systemic vein, reaches to the heart. Through the heart, again this reaches to the lungs. So in this way, so blood circulated in between lungs and tissues. So this is called partial pressure. So these pressures can important for the diffusion process or exchange process. Next, solubility. Solubility, here the carbon dioxide is always has a more solubility than oxygen. So carbon dioxide is high solubility compared to the oxygen. It has 20 to 25 times more compared to the oxygen. So that's why carbon dioxide easily diffuse into the blood. Next, thickness of membrane. Thickness of membrane. This thickness of respiratory membrane. Thickness of respiratory membrane. So actually exchange processes takes place here where? In lungs. So in lungs and tissue region. First of all, we will see the in lungs region. So in the lungs, the alveolar membrane. So alveolar membrane made up of simple squamosal epithelial tissue. Simple squamosal epithelial tissue, it's a single layer of cells. It forms a very thin layer. Next, at the same time, capillary, blood capillary also, it's made up of simple squamosal epithelial tissue. So next, in between these two layers, basement membrane is present. These three layers, they forms a very thin membrane. So that membrane is called respiratory membrane. So this thickness of membrane, respiratory membrane is also affects the exchange process. If the thickness is increased, it affects the exchange. The oxygen and carbon dioxide cannot easily diffuse if the thickness is increased. Okay. So here the alveolar membrane and capillary both are made up of a single layer of cells, that is simple squamosal epithelial tissue. Next, surface area. So if the more number of alveoli are increased, they increase the surface area. So if the surface area is increased, more amount of oxygen diffused into the blood. So if the alveolar number is decreased, surface area is decreased, as a result sufficient amount of oxygen cannot diffuse into the blood. Next, distance of membrane. So here the distance between these two membrane, so always they maintains very close relation. So here alveolar membrane in between next capillary membrane, they arranged very closely. So as a result easily the oxygen and gas carbon dioxide exchanges takes place. If the distance is increased, what will happen? If the distance is increased, it affects the exchange process. So these are the factors they can affect the exchange of gases.